game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
This is the concluding part of my hugely insightful interview with Tunde Onakoya, chess master and founder of Chess in Slums Africa. Previously on the show, we discussed about whether or not he felt that the world was listening to the voice of African children. The game itself has become a metaphor for the hopes and aspirations of millions of children up and down the country, many of whom are out of school and living in abject poverty. It does appear, unless something is done, and quite urgently too, that these children are simply pawns in a game they do not understand. So I'd like to explore some of the philosophical underpinnings of your motive, the reason you exist and are doing this. You have been quoted as saying, the only thing more powerful than poverty is potential. What does this mean? Can you unpack that?
I think of poverty as the single bane of like the human existence, and even as a single threat to our civilization, right? And it's so interesting because Africa has been defined by its poverty. Like Africa literally is like the billboard of poverty to the world, and it's such a sad thing, you know. And this is something we must refuse, right? We must never let the single story define us, and that is why I said that, because Africa's story is that of becoming, right? You know the nature of something. I like to use this analogy of the pawn in the game of chess. The pawn is the least valuable piece, you know, and it has a value of just 1 point. And in that form in which it exists as a pawn, it is mostly inconsequential to the outcome of the game. Very insignificant, can be lost in battle easily, very slow. It's of little value. It can be lost in the game and nothing happens, right? And that is almost like the destiny of the pawn, to be sacrificed for the greater good. But that is not the full story of the pawn. There's something hidden in this pawn's identity that is unknown, that is just sitting dormantly. So if the pawn is able to march and make it to the final rank, there are 8 ranks on the chessboard. The moment it steps on the final score on the 8th rank, it undergoes what we call pawn promotion. Then it becomes a queen, takes on a new identity. And the queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard, you know. She has strength, she cannot be restrained, you know. And the moment the pawn takes on that new identity, it has fully become and come to the full realization of its potential. So imagine just defining the pawn through like the value that you can't see at the beginning of the game. So which is like what I think is like the distinction between like poverty and the story of becoming, which is potential, is they exist in these different dimensions where it's easy to view through the single lens of, what is just in the data and the numbers, and to just define it. But that can never be the single story about our country or even our continent. The journey of Africa, the journey of Nigeria is that of becoming. It's the journey of so much potential that is untapped. And that is immense wealth. That is so much more powerful than what defines us right now. And is what the world is afraid of. It's our story of becoming, right? Because what we're to become, no one knows it yet. It is unknown, right? But then it has to be painfully built through our actions today, you know, every single day. And I said it earlier that potential is nothing if it's not realized. We can continue to pontificate about how much potential we have, but if we don't apply it, it is never going to come to the full realization of what it can become, right? So yes, poverty is such a terrible lens to view a lot of like the failures of our country now and what it has descended into. But what should be in front of us, what should be in our minds as we look ahead towards a future of that belongs to all of us, is to start to think and harness the potential that we wield, which is unknown yet, which is unseen, which is scary powerful. It is in our human capital. It is in our people. Just imagine like driving like interstate. Like you see kids on the streets, maybe like doing some extreme labor. And sometimes I just wonder that, look at these children in these great numbers, like of all the wonders of the human mind, of all the capacity that and influence and power that one man can have, this child is wasting it just like maybe selling fruits just on the street to like people stuck in traffic. What a waste. And that is the thing about like the energy that our country has. It cannot be destroyed, but it can be wasted on something that is insignificant, which is the real tragedy of Nigeria that has put us in this multidimensional poverty, is that our potential is wasted on things that are not of any significance. But the moment we start to channel that differently, then we're going to unearth this potential that cannot be contained, right? And that is like the true story that we must lean into. It is the only single story about ourselves that we must believe, that we're not just defined by the present situation of things in the country, that we're instead like excited about what is possible, what lies ahead of us. And this is especially important for us when we think of Nigeria, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of just being completely defeated by the scale of our problems and with the way things are right now and how deeply people suffer. But then we have to treat the country like family. Like at the end of the day, family is not perfect. It will hurt you sometimes to do all these things, but then it is yours. You cannot do away with that.
Correct.
Right? Because at the end of the day, it is yours, and Nigeria is for all of us. Right? But if we fixate too much on what has plagued us, over the years, what we see to be the reality of things, then there will be no hope left for us to continue to try our best to move the needle. The only hope that we have is to believe in the potential that our country wields, that is unknown yet, right? And the moment we keep that within our purview, then we're going to take something back, right? And that is the power that we have to know that this country can still become, every single one of us can still become.
Absolutely.
Right? And one of the greatest things Chess and Slums has ever done was, we did a project where we went to, this Lekki Ep8 Express, Jakonde access. You see all the kids begging for money in traffic, and people call them condemned children. You see them with terrible faces. You see, like life has drained, the childlike innocence out of their faces. And we went to those kids and we took them off the streets and we trained them and we taught them. One of them recently graduated from a furniture school, and he does these 3D designs that even I cannot do. But if you had seen that child 2 years ago, you'd have been scared of him. Right, because you have immediately defined him by the single story of poverty. But the moment we removed him from that situation and we put him into a new situation where he could explore his own potential, he became so much more powerful, right? And now he can do something that even I cannot do, right? So, which is how we must think about Nigeria and the things that we can change. That yes, the poverty is vivid, it is clear, it feels so real, but it is not the only thing that must define us, because there's a much more powerful narrative that we must cling to, the one that gives us hope about what is possible. And it is that of the potential that this country has. And we're going to get it right someday. And that pawn that starts out as underestimated will become the queen, which is ultimately powerful. I will decide, the outcome of the game.
Hear, hear. So here's the pièce de résistance, the very heart of the matter. Do you think that Nigeria makes it unnecessarily hard for people like you to exist, let alone succeed?
Yes, of course, Nigeria. And when we say Nigeria, it's like, what is it? What is Nigeria in itself? Is it the leadership? Is it the government? Is it the people? Is it the, institutions? Is it the infrastructure? Like, what lens are we viewing Nigeria from, as an entity? So it's many things. It's the people, it's the cultures, it's the beauty, the wonder, the terror, the dysfunction. All of it is what makes up this country. So there are some parts of it that maybe enables you to thrive, and there's some other parts, that completely destroys ambition and dreams, right? And that is what it means to be Nigerian, is to be dealt this incredible odds, and it's a very difficult problem to understand, even more difficult to solve. And some people will joke that if they explain Nigeria to you and you understand, it means that they didn't explain it to you well. And of course the problems are there, they're evident, that they permeate through, all of the dysfunctions that we have. But then I dare say that, in the midst of all of this, that like we must consider Nigeria as our own as well. Like I said earlier, it's as bad on some days, good on some days, but then we can't discard it because it belongs to us. And now, especially now that there's a wave of jackpot, like a lot of young people are escaping the country. They see it as escaping the country because they're like, this country has no plans for me and I have to find my own way. And it really breaks my heart because they're very well justified, within reason to do so, right? And I've also become I've been a victim of the country's dysfunction, even at health level and in a lot of ways. I won't get into that now, right? But I know for a fact that this is home for me. I can travel the world, but this is where I would always come home to. This is where I want to build my life, and this is where I want to contribute my gifts to. And I just hope that more young people have a sense of that jackpotting shouldn't be like an escape plan, but just something to give us a better platform to think about giving back. And we must not just leave that to political governance, that we also take responsibility for the things that we can change, right? And find ways to continue to demand for better, demand like proper accountability at every level of leadership, right? Because the truth is, Nigeria has its problems just like every other country in the world, right? But we must never let that single story of our ills completely define us solely, right? We must always consider also the things that are still thriving, the things that are still becoming, and we must lean into helping to build that as well collectively. So yes, Nigeria can be such a killer of dreams at times to a lot of young people, but again, we have to keep trying. Someone has to stay with the sinking ship.
So how do you define success in that case for a child in Makoko?
Yeah.
For yourself, from Africa? And more to the point, what role do you believe that dignity and hope play in education beyond books and the classroom for these children?
Yeah, for a child in Makoko, for us and the work that we do is to ensure, first of all, that they have an educated mind, right? And that goes even beyond the four walls of a classroom. It's a mind that can think, a mind that can make its own decisions, right? And when you think about a lot of the uprisings, and it's because someone who was an independent thinker had an idea. It could be an extremely negative one. It could be an extremely positive one. Then it stands up for something. Then millions of other people just line behind him, without giving much thought to where they stand personally. And to me, that to a degree is almost like by design the human condition, that we feel safe in thinking in groups. We don't really get out of that to think for ourselves. So I think it's one of the greatest tragedies of how our educational system has been built. So for us is to ensure that we teach these kids to be children, young people of very high agency. So I believe that we need to raise our young people to come to this level of consciousness. So for also Chess and Slums is we're raising a new generation of intellectuals, and we're very serious about that. And of course, formal education as well, to ensure that there's millions of children out of school, that we can't give them an easy entry point back into learning, right? We work with schools, we help renovate schools, help build schools in some cases, partner with schools and put these kids in there. So they have the formal education they need to be able to read, write, do basic numeracy, function, in the workplace, and finally, that we actually have a kinder society. And just to feed into what you asked about dignity it is important to us that in all the change we want to create in the world, that we're also dignifying the stories of those we're advocating for. Because it is very easy to demean the same children just because we want to score pity points. But then that is no way to change the world, right? You don't change a situation by demeaning it just to evoke like a reaction, right? And it is sad that in a lot of cases it has to come to that, because like I said earlier, we're mostly indifferent to these things as long as it doesn't affect us. So people would do everything to get a reaction out of you. But you know what is so much more powerful than the poverty porn and all of these things? It's just to really just highlight the potential of the child. And when people see that there's a basis for us to be alike, when people see that there's a basis for us to have something in common, I have found that this is much more stronger and powerful way, right, to get people to connect, to get people to be less indifferent, to get people to have a new basis for empathy. And that for me is the greatest success for Tunde Onakoya. Is that I can inspire hope in the hearts of people. That because they've seen me in my own little capacity doing something about it with my own talent of chess, that they can also feel empowered and enabled in their own stead to do the same thing. And that for me is the greatest success of the Chess in Slums idea. So success for me really is just helping people see that they can also do the things that I do. And that for me is, it's a humbling blessing, right? That people in some sense can get to live vicariously through me, by supporting our cause, contributing to it, following it and amplifying it, but to also feel that sense of duty in their own lives as well and take responsibility for the things that they can change, right? And I have chosen my mountain, and chess is just my weapon to fight, this vicious poverty that is destroying our people, that is destroying our future, and I can't change the world, individually, but one of the most beautiful stories I ever heard was the story of this child, by the ocean. And, the ocean had washed off thousands of starfishes to shore. And he went about picking the starfishes one by one and throwing them back into the ocean. And there were thousands of them. And a man just observed them from a distance and said, "Why are you wasting your time doing this? Like, there are thousands of them. You'll never be able to throw them all back. And even by the time you get to maybe the 100, they would have all died." And the boy just looked up like this, and he picked up another starfish and he threw it back into the ocean and said, "It would matter to this one." And after some time, people saw that they were inspired by the boy's courage, and they joined him. And in a matter of hours, all the starfishes were back in the ocean. So a lot of the time, people they're not brave enough to take responsibility for what they can change. But when they see you doing that fearlessly, they can be inspired by that. And they can take up the mantle within their own sphere of influence. And that is what I found when I travel and people walk up to me and say, "Thank you for helping me realize this." And that for me is how I've defined success. That it is a very hard thing to do, but then if it is inspiring change, then it is absolutely worth it.
Yeah. So Tunde Onakoya, you set out quite deliberately in 2024 to break the world record in Times Square, in order to raise the profile of your cause and to draw attention to the plight of kids in slums. A very definite agenda. But of course, since you engaged with this and broke the world record, we have seen no end of attempts and different endeavors by a variety of individuals to do the same. Well, forgive my being slightly cynical. Much of this, so much of the time, is an attempt maybe to draw attention to self, rather not about the sort of cause you are so passionate about. Does this concern you at all? This trend?
I mean, no, it doesn't. I think, everyone sets out on their own path, and they choose their own way of being seen. And honestly, we live in a different world now, and a world where attention has become the new currency. And, people would do ridiculous things to get attention, and people would do all sorts of things. Because at the end of the day, you want to feel seen, you want to feel heard. And social media has created this illusion, this chase, we continue to chase, validation and distance, So I can't fault people for, finding their own ways to be heard, to be seen, because it is hard to compete for attention in a world that cares for all kinds of frivolities, and when your voice is just a very small one, it's hard to make any mark or any impact in the world. And I've had to contend with that as well in the early years, but I've been lucky because very early on, I learned to like ground myself and my convictions in the darkness, in the days that went unseen. So it helped me to find validation, in the heart of the project in itself. So everything that has blossomed from there, now has been a result of that deeply concerted efforts that has taken years to build, So everyone finds their own path, So whether you're doing it to get attention, whether you're doing it to be famous, as long as you get an outcome that you desire, that's fine. But what I would always advise young people is, hitch your wagon to something that feels much bigger than yourself. And that is what good success is, and because, I got a message from someone recently and it was like, see, man, Uncle T, I'm tired of everything and I'm just done. Like, how can I be great? Tell me, I'm losing patience with myself. And I just told him that, see, you cannot control a lot of like what greatness demands, and that is the truth. If that were the case, then a lot of people would be successful and great. So there are a lot of things just beyond your control, and it's so hard to affect that. But what you can do if you really want to be great, right, is to just stop everything you're doing right now and invest in making other people great. It's as simple as that. Whatever you decide that would be. Like for Steve Jobs, he created the iPhone. The iPhone wasn't a tool for him to be great. It was to enable other people to become dreamers. And that inadvertently brought him a lot of success and greatness. And that is how our civilization has advanced. That every man and woman of great talent did not set out to create greatness for themselves, but for others. And in doing so, they became great. It is inevitable that would happen, right? So to say me in my own case, like the world record wasn't to bring personal glory. I was like, okay, we need money to want to set up this hub, want to, expand our programs to other countries in Africa. Let me push my own personal limits. Let me do something that I would have never thought, that I had the courage to do, to bring resource, and attention to that. And in doing so, it brought me a lot of like success as well. And that is how the world works, right? But if you set out with the wrong idea of success or with the wrong kind of ambition, then I can tell you for a fact, even if you get it, there's a lot of emptiness beneath it, and it will never be enough. And it's then they say about a gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, then you'll never be enough with it. So anyone can pursue what they want and what they desire, but make sure it's deeply rooted in something of service. And when you do that, not only would you be happy from your success, but you'd also help other people find a sense of belonging. And that is why we're here, to leave this place just a little better than we found it.
Okay, so we've talked about the physical as well as the mental in terms of the impact these endeavors have had on you. But there is, of course, the spiritual dimension as well. I'm curious, are you a person of faith? And if so, what role do you feel that has played in your journey so far?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a believer, I grew up as a church boy, piano boy in church, and I believe it is God that gives purpose that suits the nature of a man. And I think by design, we've all been purposefully built to do something in the world. And the purpose of a bird is to fly. The purpose of this cup, is so you can pour water, put a drink in it. So, and a lot of that is recognized, in the essence of its design. So the design enables it to be held like this, makes it possible to be held, for it to carry this amount of water without breaking, and I believe by design, God has built something in us, for the world. And it is not far from, so the design of it and the purpose of it, they're very deeply connected. So by design, my background, being born here, a lot of how I had to grow up, was a part of the design that was needed for something purposeful in front. And I'll tell you this, and the spiritual dimension to it is that, the only reason why I'm able to do Chess in Slums is because I had that background. I needed that background to have a deep, layered understanding of what poverty means and how I can stand in that gap for other children. And, this is not by accident, right? And which is why, for a lot of people, it is very important that you do not just be a victim of your story or your background, that you take ownership for it, because there's a reason for it. And God hides this, in a way that He wants you to discover it yourself, right? And He doesn't want you to be derailed, right, or to be defeated by it. He gave you that mountain, that challenge. He gave you that background for a reason, right? And when you don't see it as that, and when you're not able to construct meaning from your pain, from a pain that has defined you, right, then it is wasted. And the world will never get to know the beauty, the wonder of that pain that you were able to come out from, right? And for me, it's a lot of like the painful things, we had to experience growing up, as giving me the depth and the wisdom that I have now, to be able to continue to act in faith, even when it was unclear, when I didn't know what the end game would be for this idea, for this journey that I've taken, I had faith that there was going to be an expected end because God had ordained it. God had told me that, see, this is your work. This is your purpose. Like, what do you have in your hands? That if you're willing to lose it, I'm going to use it for my own glory, right? Because, we have this gift, we have this talent by design that God has given us. You come into this world and you find that you have this unique advantage that other people don't have. For me, it was chess. I could play chess better than most people. I could teach it better than most people. And then it helps you to lean into it. Because the moment you lean into it, you understand the value of it. You don't say, well, there's just one talent, let me go and bury it and throw it away. You understand that this thing is of great value to the world, right? And that is what God wants you to believe about your gift as well. And He asks you, says, what do you have in your hands, right? Do you just want to use it for yourself? Because if you do that, to give you personal success, and that's okay. But do you want to give it to me? Because if you give it to me, I'll take it and I'll multiply it. And when you lose it, you give it up. It takes it and it multiplies it and manifolds. So now I'm here, I can play chess, but guess what? There are thousands of other children across Africa that can now play chess because I thought to just give it away. And that is when the transition happens from what is your talent to what becomes a gift to others, to the world. And that is what we call purpose. And like I said at the beginning, that it is God that gives purpose that suits the very nature of a man. Like your purpose is not far from the very nature of who you are by design. And the moment you lean into it, you marry it. You don't become a victim of it. Like you marry both together. Then you're going to find success. You're going to find good success. And that will define the very existence of who you are.
Absolutely. So finally, Tunde Onakoya, if I were to cast you away onto a desert island and I had the ability to gift you one thing, what would that one thing be? What would you ask of me?
A chessboard. Obvious, yeah.
Spoken very precisely without the hint of hesitation. Tunde Onakoya, making your way through life one chess move at a time. Thank you very much for joining us
Checkmate.
on One2One.
Thank you for having me.
Here, here. Thank you. A real pleasure.